Kia ora, welcome to Under the Checkered Flag, MotoGP edition. I'm your host Kate, and we're just going to jump right in. I am joined this week, as always, by Kelly and PozzA. We have so much to talk about, and it's a double header, so this one might be a little bit longer than usual. I am going to disclose right off the bat, because you know that you have one of those days where absolutely everything goes wrong. Like, you stub your toe when you get out of bed, and then you spill your coffee down you. This podcast recording was one of those days. So it might sound a little bit funky at times, but I'm going to work my post recording magic in the editing studio. So please bear with us. We appreciate you all so much for listening. We have had to cut out some topics, mostly Alicia Spargo's retirement, so we can get into the review of Catalunya and the preview for Mugello. We will be bringing you our thoughts on the retirement next week, and then we have a 3-week break, so we're going to have plenty of time to discuss. Before we jump in to the review of Catalunya, I am so desperate to know your guys' thoughts on that Pramac livery. It's divided opinions. I, for one, loved it, but how about you guys?
I loved it. Obviously, my livery opinions were never the best, but I just thought it was really cool. I loved the little doodles on it, and it's something different. It's not like the same thing that some teams do. You know, they add some colors and be like, "Oh, this is a special livery." No, it was different. It literally was the definition of a special livery, and I really loved it personally.
I really liked it as well. Just with the white, it looked really clean, and also the return of the bit of blue with the red, I thought worked really nicely, and also seeing the portrait of Gigi Dall'Igna in the box throughout the weekend, I thought that was really nice. Just a bit sort of like humorous. I think it added a nice touch.
I completely agree. It definitely seemed more friendly and more wholesome than we've come to expect, I suppose, from Pramac and Ducati. It was also a livery I wasn't really expecting, so that was quite nice, and I hope we see more of these fun liveries throughout the season. I don't know how many, if any, we're going to see, but fingers crossed we do see some more. But let's jump into Moto3 because it was some good racing, and I mean that. It was good racing. But for me personally, it was overshadowed quite a lot by Moto2 and MotoGP this week, which is quite surprising considering how much Moto3 is absolutely awesome. Our podium was Rueda in P3, Ortola in P2, and Alonso in P1. I do want to give a shout out to the Australian rookie, Jacob Ralstone, because he matched his best place with another 8th place. What were your guys' thoughts on the race and your moments of the race?
I don't want to talk about it. It didn't really work out great for me, let's say. I believed in Ortola too little. I didn't believe in Rueda at all. I believed in Vire too much. Yeah, it wasn't fun, really. It was a great race, but oh my God, I was so upset. So upset. But, you have to move on. Just because my predictions didn't go well doesn't mean it wasn't a great race. As a race, I loved it. As a predictor and a Colin Vire fan, I didn't. But we move on.
Yeah, I thought it was a really good race as well. Obviously, not being a Via fan, that didn't affect me too much. But it was again one of those sort of races where you sort of see David Alonso lurking around fifth, sixth, staying out of trouble in the mid part, just thinking, oh, he's definitely going to start charging with 2, 3 laps to go. And in the end, that is what he did, as normal.
Possibly this year's shortest Moto3 review, and let's hope it stays that way because Moto3 is always quite bantery, I suppose. But I want to talk about Moto2 because our podium was P3, Jake Dixon, and I want to say a huge props to him. He's had a horrible, horrible start to the season, and this was quite wholesome. He really does well at this circuit, we know that, but still, his first points of the season being a P3 on the podium, really great going. P2, World Championship leader Sergio Garcia, and in P1, Aldeguer. While I'm endlessly happy that Aguirre completed the Boscosoro set, having each Boscosoro pick up a win so far this season, which I did not have on my bingo card at all. This Boscosoro domination era, I am so here for it. Moto2, for me though, was absolute pain because two of my favourite riders crashed pretty much one after the other. Fermin Aldeguer crashed out of the lead while attempting to serve a long lap penalty for exceeding track limits. He was far from the only one because it did look like a bit of an ice rink out there. There seemed to be absolutely no grip, and Moto2 seemed to suffer the most. We see the replay, we see Fermin crash, devastation. We come back, and then Aaron Canette's gone down, and he's got down out of fourth or third. And at that point, I was just like, nah, it became a race of survival with so many riders crashing out. I was just endlessly frustrated. How about you guys?
Let's just not talk about these races. They didn't work out for me at all. Like, in terms of who I wanted to win, who I wanted on the podium, one of them worked out of four. One worked out, and I didn't even get the right place. He came second, Sergio Garcia. Like, how do I have such little luck? Like, Aldeguer crashed out. Aldeguer crashed out. What else happened? Where did everyone else finish? Alonso Lopez finished seventh. Like, how was it that bad? It was essentially the definition of a shit show. I'd say, like, everyone was gone. If I'm looking at the results here now, Chantra, Guevara, and Sasaki didn't even finish the first lap. Marco Ramirez got disqualified. David Munoz, did I say David Munoz? Daniel Munoz, DNF'd. Vietti DNF'd. Canet DNF'd. Aldeguer DNF'd. Foggia DNF'd. Morera DNF'd. Like, how does that genuinely get that bad? And Ramirez was disqualified for using a tyre of the JR MotoGP. Like, it just got worse after the race finished. It was overall entertaining, but like in terms of racing, it was interesting. I wouldn't say it was my favourite race of the season, we'll put it that way.
Yeah, on top of a lot of crashes happening, there were also a lot of long lap penalties. Personally, for me, Dennis Onchu was looking pretty strong in the early stages, then got a long lap penalty for track limits, and then got another one for incorrectly serving that long lap. So that was kind of a shame, but even up and down the grid, there were just so many long lap penalties and track limits warnings going around. Top of that, was pretty happy for Agura. Nice to see that he's finally sorted out his qualifying, hopefully, and hope he can start challenging up there for wins more and more often. It was a shame for Celestino Vietti, especially crashing. It does look like the WP suspension bikes, which are KTM IO, CF Moto CF Moto Aspar, and Husqvarna. It's good to see them starting to get up there and competitive with Senna Agius, the rookie. I think finishing 6th in the end, which was also nice to see as an Australian. But yeah, not much else.
I just absolutely want to jump in on a point that PozzA raised, and that is Senna Agius, because he had a great result, to be sure, but his result should have been better because he was given a long lap penalty when he got punted off the track. Yes, he got track limits prior to, track limits notification prior to getting the actual penalty, but then he adjusted his riding style. But the move that actually got him the penalty, he was ran wide by Vietti. Like, he was avoiding a crash, and the stewards penalised him for that, which I think is absolutely not on at all. You can look at their debriefs, the team and the rider, they're furious about this. And I would be too, because you're doing everything right. Someone's pulled an aggressive maneuver on you, and then you have to avoid the crash by running off track limits. And yes, ideally, we don't want to go over track limits, but rider safety first still. So to get penalized for that is absolutely ridiculous. I know I am like the furthest thing from a steward van, but it's starting to get to that point where I have no trust in them. Like, I had very little trust in them before, but I could sort of understand their actions. I really can't anymore.
That's that's a really valid point. The stewards, even from when I came in here, they were just never up to their job. I'm pretty sure I said this on a past podcast as well. They've never made the correct decisions for situations like that, at least from what I've seen. They're just, I wouldn't say useless, but like, they're pretty useless. They're not good enough. Like, how do you screw up that badly and then just not acknowledge that you screwed up that badly? Like, Senna got completely screwed over for something that isn't his fault, and now he has to deal with it. I don't think it's fair at all.
Yeah, something similar happened in the MotoGP race as well, which I'm sure we'll cover. But I don't understand the fact that you can get shoved off the track, someone go up your inside, force you off. You have to cut the corner, like, there's nothing you can do. You come back on, say, lose half a second and 2 places, but you didn't lose a second, so you get a long lap penalty for it. I don't understand why the rules set out like that. I think it could be done a lot better, and it's something I've thought for a really long time as well.
Before we completely disrupt the scheduling, let's start talking about MotoGP. We will be coming back to that steward slander later. But the MotoGP sprint saw not one, not two, but three riders crash out of the lead, all heartbreaking in their own way. And this sounds terrible, but while we're used to seeing Pecco bottle it occasionally, and to be fair, Brad fumble a victory, the hardest crash out of the lead to watch for me was Raul Fernandez crash. So he put it on the front row for the first time in qualifying. The stewards cancelled that lap for track limits. Trackhouse appealed and that lap got reinstated. He's battling up the front in the sprint. He then takes a lead, and it's great because Raul is such a talent and he's hopefully starting to show his talent. So he's just taking the lead and then he crashes and it's head in hands, and you can see how frustrated he is with himself. He was just, yeah, heartbreaking moment for me. Worst of the three crashes. Fortunately, obviously, all riders are okay. But yeah, frustrating. What moment stood out to you guys the most from the sprint?
I was devastated, honestly, just overall devastated. Especially for Raul. I was really upset for him because he actually was performing to the point where he deserved that result. And then they just crashed and it all ended. I was like, probably the most devastated I've been for a race leader crashing out. That's how bad it was. But like, yeah, no, overall the sprint was decent. Like, I didn't have any problems with it, but just having Binder crash from the lead, Fernandez crash from the lead, Bagnaia crash from the lead, like it was just really upsetting. And I really wanted Binder to have a good result as well. Like, he does deserve it. Yeah, like my only honestly, like there was like three saving graces here, and it all was the podium. Aleix won his, home sprint. That's really sweet after, falling back from the start and then building his way back up. Marc Marquez, as Kate said before, in his Aaron Canet era, which I don't believe, I refuse to believe. And then Pedro Acosta coming back onto the podium. Like that was a decent day for me. I was happy then. But just, yeah, Raul, man. That was literally the saddest moment for me. I was so devastated.
Of the three crashes, honestly, the Fernandez crash was the one that surprised me the least. I think a lap before he went down, I was thinking he might just be pushing a bit too hard and might throw it away. In the end, he did, which was a shame. Obviously, in the Discord server, we've got just a couple of let's say, passionate Fernandez fans, and they were heartbroken, I'd say. It's a good way to sum it up. Uh, Honestly, the one that surprised me the most was probably Bagnaia. Just the fact that it was on the last lap, um, midway through second sector, on the left-hand side of the tyre. Obviously, turn 5 crashes in Catalunya happen a lot. There were a lot of them this weekend. Brad Binder did the same thing as well, down at turn 5, just tucking the front. It does seem like such an easy crash to do, but yeah, Bagnaia was the one that surprised me the most, especially on the last lap. You'd think he'd just sort of ease off a bit, bring it home, having seen 2 riders ahead of him crash out. But in the end, he did crash out, and Aleix Spargo took the win, which I was also happy to see, just with the whole retirement thing happening this weekend in particular.
Actually, a thought I've just had while you guys have been speaking, and yeah, I could be completely wrong, but I'm wondering if Pekka Bagnaia has a concentration problem. Like, we never see him crashing out of the lead. Well, very rarely do we see him crashing out of the lead when he's truly in a battle with someone. It's usually he overtakes for the lead, pulls away a little bit, and then crashes. I don't know if he prefers to follow and use another rider as his marker, but yeah, that's just the thought I had while you guys were talking, that Pecco Bagnaia generally crashes out on his own together, and I'm wondering if, he's riding along and then all of a sudden, I don't know, a bird catches his eye or something.
I mean, I can see that as a possibility. I never actually had that thought myself. So glad glad someone else mentioned it.
I mean, with the amount of times he's crashed out in sort of comfortable leads, just over, say, half a second, it's honestly not too bad of a shout from Kate there. Just with the amount of times it's happened over the last few years, when he's seemingly got pretty much no pressure, all he needs to do is stay on and he wins.
Well, the pressure didn't get to Pecco on Sunday because our podium saw him take that top spot. He was ahead of Jorge Martin in P2 and Marc Marquez breaking that Aaron Canet era in P3. Honestly, there's a bit to talk about here, and the Stewards slander will come, but what are your thoughts on this race?
Would I be evil for saying that Frankie Morbidelli crashing out was a highlight for me? Because it was. It was. I'm not really a Morbidelli fan at all. I feel like he's just a bit too cocky, and for the way he's riding on, literally a Ducati, and he's riding like a Honda rider. Like literally, I hate to compare him to Marini, but he's literally riding like Marini, but on a Ducati. He's not good enough, and I stand by it. So to see him crash out made me happy because that will knock his ego down a notch. So, minus me being a little bit of a hater, I loved the race in general. I was rooting for Acosta, and then he did crash out, which was unfortunate, and I was upset. But he made a good comeback for the time that he had, and the podium was great. I loved that. Just overall, it was good racing. There wasn't too many crashes like Moto2 because there is actually a fine line between having a few entertaining crashes and then having everyone go. Bagnaia winning a race, happy days for me. Martin on the podium, he's making a good comeback, so maybe I should consider him a little bit more in my predictions, and then Marquez finishing it out. So good day for me overall.
The main highlight of the race for me was personally just the stewards. There was the incident I sort of briefly mentioned in Moto2 with Enea Bastinini, and another one that I actually just thought of was Alex Marquez and Johan Zarco. I'll start with that one first because it's a bit more clean cut sort of thing. It's a bit more simple. Zarco, his race was, I don't know if he actually rejoined the race, but he was taken out of the race by Alex Marquez. It did just look like Alex Marquez sort of just ran into the side of him. It's one of those incidents where you'd think it was sort of a clear-cut penalty, but in the end, stewards did absolutely nothing. I don't even know if they noted it down to investigate it or anything. But the other big one, which I'll get your guys' thoughts on afterwards, since I did say my thoughts on this sort of incident in Moto2, was Enea Bastinini. He cut the turn 1 to turn 2 chicane after being forced off and got a long lap penalty, which he then ignored and got upgraded to a double long lap penalty. And then he ignored that as well and got a ride through penalty, I believe, which was turned into a 32-second penalty. And yeah, just wanted to get your guys' thoughts on that.
Yeah, I have thoughts on this. Clearly, I do. Basically, the steward's call here was, for lack of better phrasing, absolute rubbish. They should not have given that penalty in the first place. And I want to give absolute props to Enea Bastinini because honestly, the balls it takes of these riders to ride is incredible. But also, he got punted wide. He shouldn't have been given that penalty. And in his media debrief, it should be said that the media asked him if he had seen the penalty, if he hadn't seen his pit box, if he hadn't seen his dashboard, because obviously they're traveling very quick. They're busy concentrating. It is easy to miss those things. But Anaya just came out and said, no, I saw them. I just didn't agree with them. And I think that's absolutely great because he stuck to his guns. It should be noted that he did that because he thought he could appeal the penalty after. Ducati and Enea Bastinini did go to the steward's office afterwards and appealed it. The stewards agreed with them, but they also could not or would not rescind the penalty. And I have done a bit of a deep dive into the rules because I'm a nerd like that. It does seem to be a flaw that if a rider is given a ride through penalty, it cannot be revoked. It's just the way the rules are worded. It's a flaw. Hopefully they change it, but I think that's probably why they couldn't provide more action. But also, I think this does highlight a bigger issue, and Lewis is just doing a little bit of a bark, so bear with me one moment. It highlights to me this issue. Well, I don't know if it's an issue because I'm firmly on the rider's side here, and that is the fact that the riders do not respect the stewards. And in my opinion, nor should they. Because we can't trust the stewards at the moment. We can't trust their decisions. And we should be able to. We should be able to look at them and say, yes, this is the best in terms of rider safety. They're doing it to prevent accidents. They're doing it to make sure that in the future, riders are not making silly and careless decisions. And we currently don't have that. And it makes me angry. It makes me frustrated. And I fully support Anaya and his decision not to serve that penalty. And yeah, I think something's got to change. I think the stewards need to get fired, and I think we need to do a full overhaul.
My opinion's a little more simple. No hate, that was amazing. Um, I just thought it was iconic, to be honest. Like, clearly, even I'm more uneducated than you guys are, and I could see that that penalty was bull. Like, there was basically no foundation behind it whatsoever. And he was right to completely ignore it. Like, the thing is, if he went and did that penalty and then went to the stewards, it wouldn't have been accepted because, like, he did the penalty. Like, they can't get rid of it, if that makes sense. But he completely ignored it, knowing that he had that penalty, and he went off to say to the stewards, "Why did I get this? Like, there's no need. This is bull." Unfortunately, I think it did come out that the stewards ended up agreeing with him, but they just couldn't remove the penalty, which is, let's just say, even more bull. But we won't get into that. It's just the stewards are just, like I said before, they're not up to their job whatsoever, and he was completely right to say what he did and did what he did, and I have nothing more to say on that. Although I would like to ask a question. It's actually about a rider in PozzA's question. Um, Alex Marquez. We know that he is obviously Mark's brother and he rides with him alongside him on the Gresini, but as we can see by his results, he's not exactly up to par with Mark. So I guess my question is, do you see Alex staying on the Gresini? Do you see him going elsewhere? What do you think is going to happen there?
I'm so sorry, but there's a crucial flaw in your question that you have raised, and that is you have just said that Alex is not up to par with Mark. There are very, very few people, if any, to be fair, in this world that could be up to par with Mark. He's an 8-time world champion.
No, that's you know what I mean. Like compared to how the bike is, he's not performing to that level. Nobody can compare to Mark. I know that, but like for how long he's been in the sport, like for what's expected of him, he's not meeting that.
It's a bit of a tough one for me because Alex is, to me, in my mind, only entering his second year of MotoGP. Yes, he's been around for a while, but he was also on that Honda, and that Honda as well, yeah, pretty rubbish, to be fair. So, it's a tough one. He's a world champion. He's a worthy candidate for a ride, I suppose, and I'm not quite ready to rule him out. It could be my Mark bias and the fact he's Mark's brother, you know, coming through, but yeah, I don't know.
I was just thinking it's really easy to bring up the world championship or world champion sort of argument, but at the same time, if you're not really performing well, there's been the problem recently with not enough seats going around for mainly Moto2 riders to come up with. And when you think you've got Sergio Garcia, Ayagura, Alonso Lopez, probably a few others coming up through the ranks, it does get to the stage where eventually they'd have to sort of start thinking, well, we're not performing, we might as well give one of these younger guys a chance. And being Ducati, you'd say if a rookie or a Moto2 rider got offered a Ducati, they'd probably take it as soon as they can. So if he doesn't start performing soon enough, I can obviously with Kate's point, Mark being there, I don't see him losing the seat. But if Mark does end up leaving and Alex doesn't start stringing some good races together, I can see him getting dropped.
I like both of your opinions. That's what I expected of both of you, but it's also the opinion that I shared. Um, Especially the world champion argument. Like you could use the excuse that anyone's a world champion, really. Like Joan Mir's a world champion. If you throw him on a Ducati, do you think he'll perform as well as Mark would? No. Same with like Augusto Fernandez. Like it's not an excuse you can use anymore. And I feel like Paz said, if I'm not slandering Mir, I promise. It's just a situation that he's been on the Honda for so long where it's underperforming. I don't think that if he's put on a better bike, that straight away he'll be able to perform. I just don't think that will be the case. But yeah, no, you can't use that excuse anymore. And I feel like if Mark does leave, then Alex will be gone. I feel like he's been on the cusp. He's hanging on by a singular thread of rope at the minute, and I feel like if Mark leaves, then that thread is cut and he's gone. But that's my opinion, and I wanted to spring that opinion on you when Paz mentioned Alex. So we can thank Paz for that.
But before we start an argument, we need to start previewing Mugello because this is our first doubleheader and we are about time for a regular race review. So, like I said at the start, it's a little bit longer, but we're going to jump into our predictions now. So let's start with Moto3.
Shocking to no one, I've made a late change here. But going from third, I have Ivan Ortola. Looks strong in the last race, and just think he'll do well here again. Top two, I feel like wouldn't really surprise anyone. I've gone Danny Holgado in P2. Won the race here last year, which pains me to say. But I've gone David Alonso first. He's just looked so strong recently. He was in that leading group last year as well, so he's not too bad around this track. And as my reserve, I have gone Jose Antonio Rueda. Does seem like he's back to 100% fitness, and I think he'll have a strong race weekend on the back of what he did last weekend.
Mine just We all know damn well that my number one won't change, even if he didn't perform as well as I would have liked him to. I have Colin Vire as P1. It's not changing. He's staying. I refuse to change him. Not yet. I have David Alonso P2 because obviously he's performing very, very well, and I don't want that to change. And I've kept Danny Holgado. I feel like he'll come back. I feel like he'll come back to how he was before, so that's okay. And then I have Ivan Otola as a reserve.
Well, unlike Kelly, I spice my predictions up, and well, I'll be making Kelly happy because the first time this season I actually have Colin Vire on my podium in Moto3.
Oh my god. Throw a party. I can't believe it. My day's been made.
He's only in P3 for me. I think he's a little bit too tall and a little bit too nice still. Holgado's got that killer instinct that basically means I've got him in P2 because I think he'd make those cutting, daring moves over Vire. In P1, I've got Alonso. He's small, he's quick, and he's the man of the moment. He's definitely the one to beat. Moto2 Boscoscuro domination was far from on my bingo card for the season. Though it's here, I'm absolutely all for it. And to convey that, Boscoscuro is my entire prediction this week. In P3, I've got Alonso Lopez. In P2, I've got Sergio Garcia, the championship leader. In P1, I've got Fermin Aldeguer. And my reserve is Aldeguer. I just think this era, I'm so excited for. Boscoscuro, just, yeah, it's incredible. It excites me. I'm so keen to see this Calix domination end. And last weekend, from memory, and again, memory, patchy, but from memory, it was the first time since 2012, I think, that we didn't have a Calix on the podium, which is completely bizarre and insane. And for context, for our younger listeners and PozzA and Kelly who are young, the last time that happened, Marc Marquez was on the podium in Moto3. That just shows you the context of how dominant Calix have been. So I'm just here for this Boscoscuro evolution.
I've honestly gone for the exact same four group of riders, just in a different order. I've put Fermin Aldeguer in P3, which I am just going to bring up. Kelly did predict Aldeguer to win last week and has seemingly cursed him yet again.
No, we're not moving on now. You're after insulting me quite badly there. I did nothing wrong. My delusion puts Aldeguer as P1 every weekend. However, doesn't mean I've cursed him. He just has bad luck.
I completely agree with PozzA here. And the fact remains that PozzA and I deliberately didn't put Aldeguer in our predictions last week. We said that we didn't want to curse him. We said that, let's check it out. Let's try it. Let's see if this curse is something. And Kelly goes, all right, that's fine. I'm going to put Aldeguer P1. And we're like, sweet, when he crashes, if he crashes, I should say, it's the Kelly curse. And, well, it's the Kelly curse.
That happens. Doesn't mean it's my fault. Sure, I don't even think I had Acosta on my predictions last week. Yes, he crashed. So, it doesn't mean I curse everyone. Some riders have bad luck. I'm not having this slander. It's quite rude, actually. I might just burst into tears right now.
Anyway, moving on with the rest of my predictions. I have Ayagura in second. It does seem like he's figured out qualifying, and obviously winning the last race, I think he'll be up there. And I may curse him again since I've done this a bit this season, but I've put Alonso Lopez to win the race, and as my reserve, I've gone Sergio Garcia.
For mine, it's changed a little bit, but nothing excessive, I'd say. I have Obviously, I have Aldeguer P1. That's expected. I actually have put Ayagura in P2. I feel like, as Paz said, he's figured out qualifying, so he's performing better. I have Alonso Lopez in P3, and then as my reserve, I have Sergio Garcia. And for the sprint, it hasn't really changed. I'm going to be real. I have Jorge Martin in P1 because, sprint merchant. He works out well for me most of the time. I put Marquez in P2, Aaron Canet era, even though I will never admit that myself. And then even though he crashed out, I still have faith because of his sprint results last time out, and he always does very well here. So I have Pedro Acosta in P3, and then as a reserve, I have Pecco Bagnaia.
For the sprint, I'm mixing it up and I'm taking a risk, which is a justified risk. It's, a thoughtful risk. In P3, I'm going Marc Marquez. In P2, I'm going Jorge Martin. And in P1, I'm going Pedro Acosta. I'm going all in on Acosta this weekend. Yeah, I just think it's time. It's Mugello. It's Acosta. And it's hopefully going to be incredible. My reserve is Pecco Bagnaia.
I am sort of following in what Kate did. I have Marc Marquez in P3. I've gone Jorge Martin P2 as well. And I'm also going all in on Pedro Acosta this weekend. So I've got Pedro to win. And as my reserve, I've gone Marco Bezzecchi, just on the off chance that he's strong this weekend.
That's pretty valid, actually. I would put Bezzecchi as a reserve, but if I was on this podcast last year, I would have put Bezzecchi as a reserve for most races because he was performing very well. But I'm hoping he gets some valid points this weekend. I really do love him, and I really want to see him get some good results. So I'm happy you put him, even if it wasn't me.
Thanks, I guess. Moving on to the main race. Same sort of thing. I've gone Jorge Martin in P3. Pecco Bagnaia P2 being Ducati's home race and his home race. I do feel like he'll perform very well. And it being not a sprint race, I think he'll do very well. Sort of using my logic that I brought up after Le Mans. Just going to switch it up a bit. Since Moto2 in 2022, every race before Mugello, Pedro Acosta's crashed out in, and every race in Mugello he's won. So I'm backing him to get his first race win again this week. I think he can do the double. And as my reserve, I've got Marc Marquez just because it's Marc Marquez. He'll always be up there.
For my MotoGP race predictions, they haven't really changed, but well, actually, they have a little bit. You guys said I have no faith in Acosta, and I tell you, you're incorrect. Because for the MotoGP race, I have Pedro Acosta in P1. What do you have to say now? You didn't have faith in me, but I have faith in myself. So I have him as P1. I have Marc Marquez as P2. As always, I put Pecco Bagnaia in P3, and then as reserve, I've changed it and actually put Aleix Espargaro. Do I know why? No, but I want to see him get some valid points, and yeah, he's my reserve.
So if Pedro Acosta doesn't win this weekend, even though we predicted him, we are going to blame it on Kelly. Just saying, guys.
No, right. If you guys put him down for a win and he doesn't win it, you are just as guilty as me.
No, I'm still going to blame you. In fact, both PozzA and I are going to blame you, and you're just now the Kelly curse. It's no longer, the prediction curse or anything like that. It's just a Kelly curse because, like the two of you, we're just going all in on Acosta this week because he's in P1 for me for the race too. It's Mugello. It's Acosta. It's just going to hopefully happen. And if not, well, we always accept bribes. If you're a rider and you're listening to this podcast, you've stumbled across it, or you've had many results that have, been bad, and we've predicted it, we accept bribes to not mention you in our predictions. But alas, P1 for me, Pedro Acosta, P2, Pecco Bagnaia, P3, Marc Marquez, and my reserve is Jorge Martin. I want to do well this week. I want Acosta's win, and fingers crossed it does come true.
Poor Pedro, we've screwed the poor boy over. And I say we because we've all put him as P1, not just me. Oh, it's not just me this time. If he crashes, it's all your fault, not mine.
I'm significantly less confident with my prediction now.
This is where we're going to leave today's episode, but before you jump off, I just want to mention that in the coming weeks, months, I'm not too sure of the time frame, we're going to be running our very first giveaway. So, first of all, a massive shout out to Dorna's Chief Commercial Officer, Dan Rossamando. For those of you who don't know, he's quite active on Twitter, and I simply tweeted him this week because we can't currently buy Video Pass for other people. And it's something I've been thinking about a while, how we can, give back to those who tune in week after week. One of the things I wanted to do was offer, a 6-month Video Pass subscription in the off season passes, and in the new year, a year's subscription. He's confirmed to me via Twitter that it's in the queue, that they're definitely going to be looking to bring this in. So that's going to be our first giveaway. So when that happens, we would definitely be giving away subscriptions to Video Pass. I don't know how many they're going to be or what the sort of situation is, but we'll cross that bridge when it becomes available. So because of that, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button so you're notified when we do the giveaways. And as always, we want to know your predictions because we love hearing how people think we're completely wrong. We'll be here after the racing this weekend, so have a wonderful week. Let's hope we get some more spectacular racing.